Finch pulled her cloak closer around herself as she hurried her horse along. It was an unseasonably cold day. Snow was coming down thick and early. A bad omen, the old woman at the last inn had called it. As the merchant plowed her cart through the growing snowdrifts, she bitterly regretted not taking her advice to stay and wait out the storm. Daring the journey back to town and not being the result of baseless confidence. Finch was an experienced traveler who had made this trip many times before. She should have been able to clear the distance before the worst of the storm set in, but in the last leg of the trip the wind suddenly changed and brought heavy sheets of frost and sleet faster than she had ever seen before. Nevertheless, she pressed on as far as the horse would take her, even dismounting to lead them through the thickest drifts, until the fading of the final raised light behind the horizon forced her to make camp along the roadside. She held the horse with soft leather straps and kept him as close as he could bear to the modest fire she had started with the little fuel she had in her carriage. Neither her nor the two beasts of burden would ever find their way back if they strayed far on a night like this. One cannot see more than 20 feet in this downpour, but Finch tried to keep a watchful eye out as she tended the flames. It looked like her little island of firelight was walled in by a white curtain. Although she reckoned that she should already be within sight of the town, it might as well have been 1,000 miles away. It was about midnight when Finch made out the crunch of footsteps in the snow. Carried far by the wind across the hard, featureless surface of the frozen expanse. She was slumped against the carriage, battling drowsiness, when the sound roused her. She shifted slightly as she reached for the sword and buckler under her cloak, but did not yet stand up. She knew well that being unable to see something did not stop it from seeing her. A tight feel filled her chest. It wasn't fear. Fear ran wild through one's mind, painting pictures of the horrors just out of sight. Her focus remained firmly in the moment, searching the storm for what she could see and hear. It was closer to building of anticipation, like the moment before a thundercloud's first strike. Finch had known this sensation once before. She had once been caught in a fight between a mad hedge wizard and the local guards. She felt the same tension fill the air in an instant before two men burnt to cinders. The paladin had parted the arcane maniac's head from his shoulders a few seconds later, but the horror of that scene would always linger for her. After a minute of guarded vigilance, she caught a glimpse of a bipedal figure approaching through the billowing veil of the storm. A tall, powerfully built but unmistakably feminine silhouette stood out against the white backdrop. Finch did not call out. Just because it was in human shape did not make it a person. If it was an innocent stranger, it would announce itself before coming close. The horses started at the unfamiliar scent nearing from upwind. That was not a good sign. Over years of long travel, these two had grown accustomed to beasts and folk of every sort. Only the truly unnatural could spook them. Finch loosened her sword from its scabbard, then paused as the figure raised a hand and whispered something she could not hear, which seemed to calm the unsettled animals. In that moment of hesitation, the stranger turned to look directly at Finch, the sharp blue of her eyes cutting through the dark and the haze, and it said, "You can stop pretending to sleep. I know you're looking at me." After an awkward moment of silence, Finch sighed and straightened up, although she kept her hand on the hilt of her blade. Prudence remains the better part of valor, she tentatively replied to the stranger. She had a clear view of her now. She had long, thick hair that flowed down over her shoulders like water. The snow matted it, failed to disguise its vivid blue color. Although she could not see her pointed ears, Finch had only known elves to naturally possess such exotic shades. She wore little besides a few worn-out armor plates. Frost clung to her pale, exposed skin, but she did not shiver or show any sign of discomfort. Clearly, she was either injured to the cold or pain, and generally possibly both. She carried a ragged satchel and dragged a broken shield behind her as she trudged forwards. She trudged forwards with slow and heavy steps, as though she was somehow too tired to stop. To merely say she had a muscular physique would understate the matter. A farmer's wife had a muscular physique, developed under the heavy burdens of her daily life. Her body was clearly that of an athlete and a warrior, deliberately shaped by years of cultivation and training. Despite her tired attitude and blank expression, she could not help but maintain firmly upright poise and posture, belying the power beyond her physical strength. Under different circumstances, Finch might have even been jealous of her appearance. "Come, sit a while and warm your hands by the fire," Finch said, rekindling the flames with a fresh block of wood. "It's a lonely night to be trudging through the snow." The stranger looked thoughtful for a moment, as only now noticing that it was snowing. Then she sunk to the ground in a squat and extended her hands towards the fire, bringing them so close that Finch caught herself, warning, "Oh, be careful," like a child. She received an odd look in reply, but no comment. "So, where are you going?" Finch said, making a polite attempt at conversation. "Following the wind," the elfin woman responded, staring into the flames. "Seeing where it takes me." She kept her mangled wreck of a shield close to hand. Perhaps it had some sentimental value, but it was certainly far beyond any practical use in combat. It took several minutes of quiet scrutiny to spot the scraps of a faded icon which emblazoned across the shield. It took several more to piece together what that icon represented. An array of crossed weapons adorned with frozen skull. After weighing the risks, Finch offhandedly commented, "That shield looks important to you." "He who loses the king's colors loses the king's friendship," she said, as though reciting a prayer by rote. "And what king do you serve?" Finch asked, painfully aware of how dangerous pressing the matter might be. She did not reply. Perhaps she could tell that Finch already knew the answer. That coat of arms did not belong to any living kingdom or army. Only unnumbered hosts of the dead bore such symbols. Finch had confirmed her worst fears, and yet there was something reassuring in knowing what she was dealing with. For her part, the animate corpse sitting across from her seemed indifferent to having been found out, and continued looking into the fire, seeming to not so much feel the heat as indulge in the reminder of something nostalgic. After a while, the pale elf posed a question of her own to Finch. "Do you always travel alone like this?" "It is dangerous for a lady to travel alone." "You're a lady as well," Finch retorted. "No, I'm not," the stranger said earnestly. "I'm just a soldier." Both women sat in awkward silence. For about an hour, until the pale elf seemed to have made up her mind about something. I'm coming with you, the undead warrior declared. Pardon? Finch sputtered in surprise. I cannot leave you on your own, she explained. What if you encounter something dangerous? Something dangerous like you? Finch thought to herself, but held her tongue instead, and she replied, I can defend myself, you know. Show me, then, said the blue-haired elf, springing to her feet with more energy than she had shown before. Land a touch on me with that sword of yours, and I shall go away. Otherwise, you will accept my help. Finch stood up defiantly. As she gripped her sword hilt, she realized she was tired, hungry, deprived of sleep, and shivering with cold. Against an opponent who was immune to these ailments and could certainly had decades, if not centuries, more experience than she does, there was only one possible outcome. So might as well save her energy. Fine, she said, dropping her sword into the snow. You can ride in the back. Do you mind the merchandise? I'll be charging you for anything that gets broken. A smile finally broke the stillness of the warrior's face as she said, You won't regret this. Hope not, Finch muttered before bundling herself into a snow pile, hoping to catch a little sleep before the sun rose. From her resting place, that question occurred to her. What should I call you, soldier? The merchant asked. The pale elf looked as though no one had asked that question in a long time. Call me Venus, she answered. Venus Callida.